Cool. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Yeah, as mentioned, my name is Kofi Ano. I'm currently a consultant at Baringa in our energy team. And I've been at Baringa for about 4 years. And I just want to take a few minutes, just introduce you to who Baringa is and the type of work that we do, really sort of staying in line with consulting being an industry for all. Cool. Cool. So Baringa, we are a management consultancy. We operate across the world in loads of different countries. We're in the US, we have offices in the US, UK, Germany, Singapore, Australia. And yeah, we work with a number of different clients trying to solve some of their biggest problems and answer some of their biggest questions. We see ourselves as more geek than generalists, so we take the time to really understand our client, really understand their needs, and yeah, use our specialist skills to then deliver the best solutions for them. And in keeping with the title, as I said, you can see some of our industries and capabilities down here. So we work across a number of industries. So, you know, if you're in the room right now and thinking about your own experiences and trying to think whether Baringa might make sense as a place for you, you can see here that there is literally something for everyone. So we cover our financial services across the board, from banking to capital markets, wealth management, energy and resources as well. So retail networks, we have energy markets and analysis team, which does a lot of modeling, including some climate change modeling. And we've got some generation and trading capability as well. And then we've got our products and services space, which covers telecoms, media, consumer products, and life sciences as well. So those are our sort of industry pillars. And then we have our capabilities, which cut across all of the different industries, but take specialist skills to deliver clients to deliver solutions to different clients across different industries. So we've got, for example, customer and digital, which looks at digital strategies of clients and tries to deliver really clear solutions for them to try and improve their digital offerings if they're trying to move from maybe an older system to a more up-to-date way of doing things. We've got our people and process excellence team, again, for example, which is all about process improvement and trying to make processes more efficient and more streamlined. And then we've also got technology transformation as well, which is all about delivering really large scale change programs to again make businesses a little bit more efficient. And one thing that actually you don't see here on top of on this is that we actually have another team called Baringa Enablement, which essentially underpins Baringa and runs the business. So if you are interested in the industry that is consulting, but you are a sort of a business management specialist, so that's like HR, recruitment, finance, D&I, all of that sort of great stuff, then again, we do have a great team here available for anyone who's interested in that as well. And just to wrap up the intro into Baringa, we have a number of awards, and one thing that Baringa really prides itself on is our people focus. So we really pride ourselves on being one of the best places to work in the country, being one of the leading management consultants in the country, and also having a really top focus on well-being and diversity and inclusion. So that's a really quick introduction into who we are as a business, what we do, and the areas that we operate in. So I'll now hand over to our host of the panel. He's going to take you through some really interesting insights from some more members of the team. And then I'll be back later towards the end to talk through some specific opportunities at Baringa. So Cassandra, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Kofi. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope you can hear me. Kofi, you're looking like you can't hear me. Can you hear me? Yep, that's great. Thank you so much to everyone for making the time to join us. We're really excited to host you and have you here today. Baringa and UIP have been working hand in hand to prepare what we hope is going to be an informative but also relaxed, enjoyable, just conversational session for all of us. Starting with quick introductions, my name is Cassandra Biarahanga. I'm an analyst at Baringa within the Energy and Resources business unit, having started off my career in oil and gas. My background's in chemical engineering and more recently sustainable energy systems. And I, like Kofi said, I'll be your host this evening, but I'm joined by even lovelier panel, Sally, Tyrone, and Sam, who will also take us through some intros. So I'm going to start off with you, Sally. Tell us a bit about yourself, your role, your experience, and what you've achieved so far within Baringa.
Oh, what you've achieved is a tough one, but I'll see what I can do to answer the question. So, hi everyone, I am Sally Dwamina. I am a senior consultant in Baringa's supply chain and procurement team, and that's one of the capabilities that Kofi talked about. So it's cross-cutting across different industries or sectors. I joined Baringa in September of last year, so I've been here for about 8 months. My background was in procurement and primarily in the public sector, so in the civil service. I've worked across a number of different government departments, most recently the Cabinet Office, doing lots of kind of, well, somewhat interesting stuff on procurement in my previous life. In terms of, I guess, achievements, gosh, I would say that one of the big ones right now is that the client I'm working with is another public sector client, and we're working on a really interesting project helping them to outsource services. It doesn't sound that interesting, but it's really important. It's what they call critical national infrastructure. So if this falls down, then that means it has a big impact on the economy. So you know, it's kind of really heartwarming and really inspiring for me to be working on something that genuinely makes a difference. I should have said, I don't know if people are familiar with procurement, but it's essentially buying goods and services and contracting for goods and services. So clients will come to us and say that maybe they're struggling to outsource something, or they're struggling to contract for particular services. Can we help them get the best deal? So, you know, kind of do a good negotiation, make sure it's a cheaper price, better value, better quality, and all of that stuff. There's stuff to do with contracting in there as well when you're looking at procurement, and a couple of other bits that I won't go on too long for because there are other people on the panel, but that's a quick intro to me.
Thanks, Sally. Over to you, Tyrone.
Hi everyone, I'm Tyrone Salami. I'm an analyst in Baringa's government team. So that's an industry focused sector within Baringa. I first joined Baringa as an intern in January 2021. Before that, I was studying, doing my master's, and then joined full-time as an analyst in March 2021. So yeah, been at Baringa full-time for just over a year. And in that time, I've been able to work with a range of different government departments. And in terms of, I guess it's highlight, or I guess, what is it, Cassandra?
Just give us a quick intro into like your experience in Baringa and achievements.
Yeah.
Anything, yeah.
In terms of achievement, I would say, so one of the clients that I worked with for around a year, we had like an away day for their team because they were actually restructuring how they were, I guess, coming together. So being able to, I guess, give them the tools to come together as a team and, I guess, motivate them when it comes into going into the new operating model. That was quite something good to see and help out with, especially as a lot of them wouldn't have seen each other given the pandemic, and coming together in person was, yeah, it was good to see everyone coming together and having fun too.
Thanks, Tyrone. Over to you, Sam, last but not least.
Hi, thanks, Cassandra. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Eberhon. I joined Baringa in September as a director. So I co-lead our flexibility and technology capability here at Baringa. Previously, I worked at Arup doing similar stuff and spent some time in commodity trading analytics. So what this means is basically supporting traders with, you know, giving them advice as to where power prices are going to be for the next day and for the next week, next month. But now at Baringa, we're providing kind of longer term investment horizon analytics. And yeah, so that's me. I guess once upon a time, a long time ago now, I did chemical engineering at university, and then I did a master's in project management. So yeah, that's for all of the engineers out there. Yeah, a role in kind of analytics and working in consulting is definitely for you. Don't want people to think because you studied engineering that consulting is off limits. We actually hire a lot of engineers. In terms of like achievements or things, yeah, on that side, I think I get the most value personally with work which aligns to net zero. Father of two, so like to see infrastructure come to bear, like stuff actually get delivered on the back of the analysis we're doing. But I would like it to be aligned with delivery of net zero. So my previous role, I worked with the Isle of Man government on their net zero strategy and delivering, ensuring they deliver that for 2050. And since I've been here at Baringa, we've been advising a number of infrastructure investors around what net zero could mean for their assets and the power projects that they have in the development pipeline. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Sam. So just like everyone has, just like the panel has mentioned, we've all come from slightly different paths. We've all ended up at management consulting at Baringa. And so just to dive into that a little bit, there's two aspects to this. Number one, I'm curious from the panel, what is it about Baringa that attracted you to the company, but also just on a wider perspective in terms of consulting? How did you get, I know we've briefly touched into it, but how did you get into consulting, since most of us came from industry or graduate backgrounds?
Yeah, maybe if I could have the first stab at answering the question and maybe try and answer it in a slightly different way and, speak to what I think consulting is. So as I see it, it's really around, in a structured way, trying to answer clients' burning questions. So, it may be working with regulators or government bodies or private companies. They will have the best questions are the burning ones, really, the ones which kind of keeping people up at night, or they really believe they need an answer to this problem for the business's long-term future. And as a consultant, you are using kind of tried and tested approaches, and those approaches, coming from an analytical perspective, probably would involve using models to help to answer that question. So yeah, that's the first piece. And the second piece is really around, I think, being an engineer or coming from an engineering background and chemical process, you're broadly a problem solver. That's ultimately what they're teaching you. So, there may be some process, oil and gas or chemicals and pharma elements there, but it's really around how do you use what you know to solve client problems. So I think, consulting and engineering kind of lends itself, there's a good foundation in engineering to kind of pivoting into consulting. That's kind of my first stab. I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
I was trying to remember the question, Sam.
Sorry, I was talking too much.
No, don't worry. I remember the second bit about what attracted us to Baringa, but Cassandra, what was the first part again?
So what attracted you to Baringa, and then sort of pivoting from what Sam has said, how did you transition from where you were based, industry or school, university, whatever it was, into consulting?
Okay, I'll go next if that's all right, Tyrone, if hopefully you don't mind. So in terms of what attracted me to Baringa, I'll start off with that. I had a good friend who was working at Baringa and she spoke really, really highly of the company. She'd worked in consulting her entire career, but I'd never heard her so kind of enthusiastic and passionate about the employer that she had. And I just thought kind of like, what is it that makes this company so good that she's always going on and on about it? So that was something that, you know, given that she was my friend, she's somebody that I trusted and respected, that initially intrigued me about Baringa. And as I got to speak to more people, as I started to do a little more research, I know Kofi showed the slide in terms of awards, but I think there is a genuine difference in terms of the focus on well-being, the culture, you know, kind of people are really, really nice, genuinely really, really nice, which I haven't seen in such a kind of big way in previous departments or previous jobs that I've had. So for me, that was a big thing in terms of why I applied to Baringa. And then I guess in terms of pivoting into management consulting, I'd always been interested in it. So I'd had friends who were consultants, and I was always intrigued by what they were doing. I'd worked with a lot of consultants and they came across really well. And I was like, they always seem really smart. How can I get into this job and also come across as if I'm really smart? What do they teach them there? So that was something that just kind of piqued my interest. And a couple of years ago, I think, or 3 years ago now, I actually applied to Baringa and was unsuccessful. So I didn't make it past the first interview stage, which I was devastated about at the time, obviously, but kind of went on to do something else and then applied again last year and made it through. So that's just a bit of background and story in terms of why Baringa and why I thought consulting was interesting, and diversity and variety, sorry, I should say. So I love the fact that you do different projects, you work for different clients. I like the fact that, you know, you get kind of like rotation across different parts. I get bored quite easily. And so I wanted something that would allow me to see different businesses and different industries. So that was a big thing for me.
For me, in terms of why consulting, so I was speaking to a colleague recently in terms of she was trying to explain to a younger member of her family what she does on a day-to-day basis. And I guess what she came up with as an answer was basically doctors for businesses, in a sense that you help and support your clients in terms of the problems and the issues that they have. And that kind of, for me, when it comes to being able to work with a range of different clients on a range of different things, as Sally mentioned, in terms of her getting bored, for me, I just wanted to try a range of different things. And for me, also being able to find out what I'm good at, what I'm not, what I actually enjoy. And I thought that, I guess, the varied nature of management consulting will kind of like take that off and allow me to do that. So currently on a project, I've been able to learn some hard skills around Power BI and data analysis, and something I really enjoy. And I guess for me, when it comes to why Baringa, just the culture is absolutely great. And one thing that stands out for me is just the time that people have for you. So as mentioned, I joined as an intern first at Baringa, and that internship was entirely virtual. So yeah, it was quite different joining a company where you don't meet people face to face. It's entirely through, we use Microsoft Teams. But just the time that people had for me, getting to know me, making sure I was okay, and making sure that the internship was as smooth as possible and enjoyable for me. And it's definitely been the same as I've joined as an analyst. So I'll definitely say it's the culture, the focus on people, the focus on well-being, that's definitely allowed me to enjoy my experience at Baringa.
That's great. You guys have all given like really great responses and quite detailed responses actually. And what have come across from all of you is there's been a balance of technical skills, but also some soft skills, not just that you've needed to bring to Baringa or to management consulting, but also that you felt that you have gained once you have been within this space. So I know a lot of people within the call, I can already see from the questions, are transitioning or looking to transition from industry that's not consulting into this space. And Sam, you've mentioned chemical engineering and how you can transfer some of those skills. Tyrone, you've mentioned Power BI and more data analytical skills. Sally and Tyrone, you also touched into culture, which speaks more into soft skills. So let's just expand on that a bit. Like, what other skills would you guys say you've found most useful within your roles? And even if there are gaps that maybe you think, okay, maybe I was missing that, and this is something that I had to develop. How did you develop that? And what resources can you recommend to everyone listening in? That's a long question, but I hope you got what I'm asking.
I'm happy to kick off on that one. I think the first thing I would say is that don't discount the skills that you've picked up from industry. I think it's quite easy to look at consulting and think, oh, it's so complicated, you know, it's like rocket science. How do they manage to do this, this and that? But actually there's so much value that you can bring to a company from having worked in an industry for however many years and knowing how it works, knowing how it runs, knowing how, you know, kind of companies within that industry operate. So I think that's the first and foremost thing that I would say. For me, I guess some of the biggest things were around the soft skills. So I had government procurement experience and kind of a background. And so I understood how like public sector procurement works. It's quite a regulated industry. So you need to understand kind of the do's and don'ts. But I genuinely think you can pick that up. You can kind of Google the rules and the regulations and make sure you stick within them. I think the soft skills are where the biggest difference is made. So having kind of those interpersonal skills, you're working with clients, making sure that, you know, you're approachable, you are able to just build a rapport with people, understand their problems, and just having like a really good kind of relationship building skills, I'd say is definitely a big one. One that people talk about that I probably hadn't picked up as much was around PowerPoint. People talk about it all the time, and in consulting,
excellent PowerPoint.
Literally, honestly, you're making slides like all the time, and I wasn't used to that from an industry background. That would be kind of like writing Word documents or just sending emails back and forth or having meetings. So that was definitely something that I hadn't realized was as important as it was that I guess tried to work on in the time that I've been here.
Thanks. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, Tyrone, did you want to go? I can go.
Feel free, Sam.
Oh, thanks, Tyrone. Yeah, no, I think the differentiator, I saw a question as well about other consultancy firms, and yeah, I don't want to name any of them, but I would say, you know, Baringa does pride itself on its deep sector expertise. So it's building on what Sally was saying and not saying, oh, you know, all of the stuff I learned in industry, I don't need anymore. I think actually Baringa as a firm goes after people who know a lot at the experienced level, that know a lot about the sector, the industry that they've been working in. So we don't want to have like this thin veneer of knowledge, and if you scratch too, you know, deeply, you find there's nothing there. And there's, you know, because we find there's no amount of like PowerPoint wizardry that's gonna you know, fool certain clients that you help working with in industry if you really don't know your stuff. So that is one of our differentiators. Definitely. I would say probably in terms of resources and things, if you're looking to make the transition into consultancy, that's worth kind of looking at. I would recommend looking at anything on the Minto pyramid principle. So, or top-down thinking, or, you know, so essentially it's a way of structuring your arguments and even structuring PowerPoint slides where you are building to kind of an irrefutable conclusion. So I think if you know, able to pick up a copy of the pyramid principle, I would definitely recommend taking a read of that. You know, but like, you know, these skills in terms of PowerPoint, being a PowerPoint ninja, those are things you can learn if you're making the transition into consultancy. But having that deep expertise is something as a firm that we will be looking for if you're coming in at an experienced kind of higher level.
For me, when it comes to the soft skills, I've got two, which are curiosity and collaboration. And curiosity leans onto the being experts and being geeky about what we do. In government, we had our strategy day recently, and the overall theme was being geeky about government. So that deep expertise for the industry or capability that you're in. And when it comes to collaboration, working well with your colleagues within Baringa, as we mentioned, people's a big thing at Baringa, but also working well with your clients as well. In many projects, you'll be extensions of your client team. So being able to collaborate well with them and, of course, work. And when it comes to working, you want to have fun with the people you're working with and enjoy yourself at the same time as well. So collaboration is definitely a big one.
Yeah, Now, I can definitely echo what everyone has said with regards to both the technical and the soft skills. And being new to consulting myself, I think being surrounded in an environment where there is a lot of industry knowledge and expertise, but also that supportive culture, it really does create all the difference. And now, Tyrone, I'm going to follow up on what you said, because you spoke briefly about having fun and enjoying what it is that you're doing. And all of you, when we were speaking about your achievements, you did mention some client work that you did that you were proud of. So just like, let's talk about that a little bit. What do you enjoy most about not just consulting, but also the clients you get to work with? And on the flip side, since we can't pretend that it's always smooth sailing, what has been the most challenging project for you so far, if any? It doesn't even have to be a project, maybe just the most challenging moment within your consulting career, and how did you overcome that?
So I guess first, and starting with what I enjoy, it's the people for me. Being blunt, I reckon I could do something that's not as interesting, but if I'm working with great people, I'll enjoy it, because being able to work with other people and just having that collaboration and interaction with others is a big thing for me. So, and Baringa's got exceptional people who are not only smart and brilliant and bright, but also fun and want to enjoy themselves as well at work, but also hard workers too. So definitely is the people when it comes to highlight for me. And in terms of, I guess, most challenging project, it was a project I was on for quite a bit. And I guess it was more in the sense of the sheer size of the project. And going into the project, I wouldn't say I understood everything that was going on in the project when I first landed. And that was quite challenging in the sense of there were so many moving parts, and there's like things are still moving and I'm still trying to get to grips with what's happening. But I guess in terms of like overcoming that, it was simply just time. People will be patient with you and understand that it's a massive project. You need to get your bearings right. So even though it took me a bit of time to get my bearings right, people were patient, and eventually time helped, and I was able to get under, get into the swing of things. And yeah, it was a great project at the end. But definitely at the start, it was quite challenging and just getting my bearings on the project.
Yeah. Sally, anything to add?
I'll let Sam go.
All right, thanks, Sally. Yeah, so I think for me, again, I think, building on what Tyrone has said, probably start with the challenges. We tend to get, dealing with projects where the problem statement isn't necessarily clear, or it is clear, and the answer that, producing the answer to the problem is difficult, and that therefore the project slips. Those are the things which for me are challenging, because I have to have awkward conversations with clients around sometimes, well, we said we would deliver this on Friday. Well, actually, so those are challenging, but then it's linked to the things that I enjoy, actually, because of our reputation, having subject matter expertise and the geeky nature of us as a firm. We do get asked questions which aren't necessarily that straightforward and easy. If you have an easy question, then you may go elsewhere. If you have a more difficult question, they come to Baringa. And I like those difficult questions, actually, because then I learn something. I think as well, that's probably something useful to take from what I'm saying, if there's anything useful, is really around expecting to still be on a journey of learning and improvement as you enter consulting. So, as a director in the firm, I'm still learning, and I think, speaking on behalf of the partners in the firm, I would say the majority of them feel as though they're still learning as well. So yes, we have expertise and experience, but you will learn, and as we get you know, those difficult questions, you will be learning as you're going as well. So those are the, you know, so I kind of started with the challenges and then flipped to the things that I'm enjoying, but yeah, kind of linked.
Yeah, end on a high.
Cool, yeah.
Mine's probably not that dissimilar from Sam's. So I think one thing that I do really enjoy is the fact that we're working on clients' toughest problems. And I think somebody before I joined described consulting to me as having to deal with things that most businesses would have to deal with maybe once every 5 years all the time, because they are really things that they're really struggling with solving, which is why, you know, kind of they're paying a consultancy to help them work that out. And I do really like that about the role. I like the fact that, you know, kind of, as Sam said, you know, I'm learning, I'm genuinely working on something right now in the 8 months that I've been here that I did not have the opportunity to do in all the time I spent in the civil service. And, you know, that's really rewarding, and that really helps me feel like I'm developing and growing and understanding my my sector a lot better than I did previously. In terms of, I guess, the challenge, I think one thing that I found difficult when I first started was the fact that clients were looking at me for the answers. And it's probably more so a bit of a self-confidence thing where I kind of thought, oh, I don't know that much. I know a bit, but maybe I'm not that great. But actually being comfortable with saying something with confidence and, you know, kind of believing that, yes, this is absolutely the right thing that you should do, and trusting my instinct was something that I found a lot more challenging than I had anticipated. But, you know, kind of having lots of client calls, working through lots of problems and finding solutions has really helped me work on that and build that. And so that's probably one thing that I found quite challenging.
Yeah, just on that, there's a question from the chat, which I think is quite relevant. So I'm just going to slip this in now. It's coming from Berlin, which is cool. Hi, people from Berlin. The person is asking, if I have no academic background or work experience and I'm assigned to a certain industry, how should I prepare for the consulting role? The reason I think this is relevant in what we're discussing now is, even though, like Sam and Sally, you two might have vast knowledge in a specific sector and industry, you might find yourself on a project or clients asking you or demanding for knowledge that's not necessarily linked to that specific expertise. And for you and I, Tyrone, it's slightly different. At more junior levels, we don't have that wealth of industrial expertise. And so we might find ourselves in projects where we're just like, oh, I did not cover that in my course at university. How do I begin answering this question? So how should someone like that prepare for the consulting role?
Yeah, I guess I can tackle that first. I would say, you know, in consulting, sometimes you have to say, I don't have the answer right now. And actually, you know, we'll come back to you. So I think generally people that come to us are trusting our process, our tools, our methodology to answer the question. It may be the case, we may not have the answer right away because no one has asked us that question before or recently. So we have to go through a process, you know, work our tools and our approach to come out with the answer at the end. But I think if it's just a general question, you know, as the project is evolving, yes, you know, sometimes say, look, I don't have the answer right away. Can I take it away and come back to you? And then you know, that coming back to you involves you reaching out to a broader group of people, and then the collective Baringa mind, and saying, hey, I got this question from the client, like, you know, help basically. And generally, because of the culture in the firm, you will get a lot of help. People will say, look, you know, this is how I would answer the question, blah, blah, blah. And you'd get that support. So that's probably the suggestion that I would have.
Yeah. I was going to say something similar, and I'm going to get tired of saying that I was going to say something similar to Sam. But just specifically around that last point about asking people, I can only say this for Baringa because this has been my experience with Baringa, but genuinely everyone is so willing to give you the time to talk through a particular client problem that you may have. I've spoken to partners, I've reached out to people that I've never met before, never spoken to before on Teams. I've reached out to people who are in my team, literally, you name it, literally just pinging them a message saying, this is what I'm working on. I'm really struggling with this, or I'm finding it challenging to work out the right way to go about this. Any chance you could help? And no one has ever said no. You know, kind of people put in time to have a chat about it. They might send you an email. They may send you stuff that they've done before, but genuinely everyone has been really helpful. So yeah, I think that the best way is to ask people who have done it before, as Sam said, because here at least everyone is really kind of willing to give you that time of day and help you work through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I'm going to say echoes both what Sam and Sally said in terms of just showing that willingness to learn when your, I guess, industry expertise or technical level isn't, I guess, at a certain level, and just using that willingness to learn, to, I guess, learn from your team who have that experience, who have that technical knowledge and expertise, and using that collaboration and those softer skills to kind of, yeah, not leech. I use leech as a lack of a better word, but leeching onto what they know. So you're able to, I guess, absorb that through your interactions with them and working with them. But yeah, definitely just showing that willingness to learn and actively doing it too.
Yeah, I definitely will just echo what everyone has said. And I think even just linking back to resources that are available, the first resources at hand is people. And then after that, you can ask the people to give you what resources they use. You know, some people will tell you, oh yeah, like I listen to this or I read this, and that keeps me updated, that keeps me informed. And I'd say in the culture of consulting, staying informed is really, really important, especially if you feel like you have gaps that you need to address or you're lacking in a certain area. Information is wealth in this industry. And just tapping into that about if you feel like you're lacking or if you feel like you're slightly not up to par. There's a question from the chat. It's from Alfreda. I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's names correctly. And they're asking, what made you think you were right for consulting, and how do you feel about consulting as a person of color? I saw a reaction.
Yeah, no, I think we're going there. To be honest, this is good. This is about time, in a sense. This is kind of, the elephant in the room, is BYP. Yeah, I mean, as Baringa, I think Baringa's been intentional about trying to be more balanced, and what that means isn't kind of affirmative action. That is, understanding that talent is out there, and actually the problem is more likely been with us as, and I think other firms are going through the same thing and saying, well, the lenses that we apply to look for the talent are probably the issue. So let's resolve those so that we're able to have a kind of a representation within our business which mirrors, the localities that we're in. For me personally, I haven't, dealing with clients in consulting, I've not felt that there's been an issue in terms of, people's reacting negatively to my color. I think I'm, obviously black. So like, I haven't seen, that as being a hindrance. And I think within the firm, because we hire, we have a culture which, which is be kind is one of our key kind of values. And yeah, so I think we have people that are on the journey and trying to be inclusive of everyone. So yeah, I haven't, kind of witnessed any issues on the consulting side, or, working with clients or working with colleagues. I would say earlier in my career, there have been some challenging experience. I worked in trading and trading analytics. and the trade floor can be kind of toxic, if I'm being honest, not just from a ethnic perspective, but also from a gender perspective, from all of the perspectives, to be honest. So, there have been some, challenging, bruising kind of experiences that I kind of experienced then. But I think since I made the transition to consulting, it's been better, much better.
Thanks. Tyrone and Sally, anything to add?
In terms of the first part, and how did I know I was right for consulting? For me, it's because I knew first that didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I also knew I actually just wanted to try a range of different things, interact with a range of different people, a range of different clients, do different things. And as, in essence, consulting or management consulting allows you for that in terms of the different projects you can get involved in, the different people you can interact with. I guess in a pre-COVID world, the chances to travel. So that's why I knew, okay, in terms of what I'm looking for in a job, in a career, management consulting ticks those boxes. And when it comes to being a person of color in consulting, I'll answer that in relation to, I guess, Baringa. And for me, I guess what's good is that the challenging conversations we're able to have as a firm around us, our experiences as people of color, and the willingness of people to actually listen and understand what my perspective, regardless of grade, regardless of how long you've been at the company, regardless of how senior you are. So just being able to have those conversations and people actually wanting to learn, wanting to hear my opinions, is actually, quite a good thing, especially as you have some preconceptions of what work is like in terms of, okay, you turn up, you do what you're told to do, but I wouldn't say that's the case at Baringa. You're encouraged to have a voice, you're encouraged to speak up and pioneer and do things that you feel like is best for your, I guess, your cleavages, etc. So my perspective has been good, and I'm just glad that we have the opportunity to have those challenging conversations.
I agree. And in the interest of time, I'm conscious that we probably want to answer some of the questions from everybody else. But literally echo everything that Tyrone and Sam have both said. I've never had any issues in Baringa being a Black woman. I've got kind of a great network of people who look like me, who I've built great friendships and bonds with. I've also managed to, kind of build really good relationships with my project team, who may not all look like me. So yeah, my experience has genuinely been positive. And I think I touched on kind of what attracted me to consulting earlier about the kind of variety of roles and solving hard problems. So I will keep that brief.
And just to keep the mic or the attention on you, Sally, there's a question to you in the chat from, I can't see who it's from, sadly, sorry, but how did you find transitioning from the public sector to the private sector? And what is your advice for someone wanting to do the same?
I think I was quite lucky. I didn't find it that big a change. Actually, I don't think I was quite lucky. I'm sure other people would say the same thing. I didn't find it that big a change. One thing I will start off with is the fact that I am working on a public sector client right now. And so that has made the transition a lot easier. I'm working in an industry that I'm, very familiar with. I hadn't worked with that particular department before, but I'd worked in the Cabinet Office. And so I had a broad understanding of lots of departments. I think for me, the kind of core skills in my industry haven't changed in terms of that move from public to private. The things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis are not exactly the same, but the kind of core skills are exactly the same, just on a far bigger scale in terms of the complexity of the problem that I'm working on. One thing that I was quite surprised by on the kind of back to the softer skills was genuinely how nice everyone was. And I thought working in the public sector that, everybody was really lovely and everybody was really sweet, but actually coming to Baringa, it's that thing we talked about earlier about people really going out of their way to help you. And so the amount of time people have given me since I started has been incredible. And I think that was one of the biggest differences that I saw for the positive anyway, in terms of the change from public to private.
Thanks, Sally. I'm going to do quite directed questions, just keeping time in mind. So to you, Tyrone, seeing as you're the freshest out of uni, of the panel at least, there's a question from Kai. As a current university student, I will have lots of time to prepare for eventually getting a job. Is there anything that can help prepare me to adapt into the industry?
Ooh, good question. One, I would say definitely don't forget the skills that you learn at university and think that it doesn't directly translate into the working world, because it definitely does. An experience with me during my internship, when it came to, I guess, the eye for detail that I was able to develop during my my master's, my time of study, such as doing my dissertation, I was able to bring that during my internship, and definitely helped on the project that I was on. So definitely that eye for detail. And just generally, when it comes to transferring what you've learned from university into the world of work, those things that you learn at uni, such as working with other people, that willingness to learn, you can definitely direct that and translate that into the world of work. But also when it comes to having that time to, when it comes to having that time, when it comes to when you're in university, you've got a bit of time and you might do a range of different things. In work, you can also do a range of different things when it comes to learning and developing as well. But also I would also say when it comes to networking too, being able to network across the business, as Sally mentioned, in terms of people having time for her across the business, from partners to directors, etc., using those networking skills that you may have developed at university and bringing it to the world of work so you can learn and develop from others. So definitely for me, it's about learning and developing, but also being able to see that your skills from university are transferable to the world of work.
Yeah. And maybe just for me to also tap into that or add on to that, I think also keeping your eyes open for opportunities. I think in university, I think we take it for granted how much opportunities are being laid in front of us at every moment. So whether it's internships from outside the university, try see if you can engage in, like Tyrone said, a diverse range of sorts of internships across industry, just to try and see what is it that you actually like, or what is it that interests you, sparks your interest. And look out for the opportunities that Baringa is advertising, because they are plenty. Now I will go to, this can be an open question for the panel. It's a question from Francis. They are considering a change to consulting after 20 plus years in the pharma industry. And one big benefit is that they currently get to work from home full time. No, the question is partly, are we office based, and is there much work travel involved? I can answer the first part. Baringa is flexible, so you are allowed to go into the office as many or as few times as you would like. However, of course, if you are on a project and you are working with clients, sometimes the clients will have demands for you to work on client side, but that also can be discussed. I'm curious with regards from the panel, have you guys felt any benefits or disadvantages from remote or hybrid working?
I would echo what you said, Sandra. I mean, Baringa is flexible. I haven't seen any or heard any coming kind of edicts around how many days one is expected to be in the office. So yeah, I mean, we have full flexibility. What I will say is, if you're starting a new job, getting FaceTime and getting to meet your colleagues is important. So, you know, at the start, probably investing the energies to come into the office more will be helpful. And then potentially, I guess, ramping down to kind of be more on the working from home side once you've already kind of, built, because you can't really get past those face-to-face and the ways, relationships are built in that way. So yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to add, Tyrone?
Yeah, I guess one thing to add is just, yes, definitely hybrid. And I guess when it comes to the different types of interactions you're having or the different days you may have. So for example, if it's I've got something to do and I just need to get it done, it may be best to be a work from home day. But if it's, oh, I need to bounce ideas with people, my team, it might be best to, get into a room, into the office and just like, hash that out. But it's definitely hybrid and up to you when you come in.
Okay, let's tap back into the chat. So there is a question from Francis, I think, another Francis. I'm also coming from a project management / consulting background in domestic abuse, and it would be great to know how we could transition when not having that specific expertise in management consulting. I think we've touched on this a little bit before, but if you guys have anything else that you want to add.
I think one quick thing that I'll say is that project management is a great background, actually. So I come from, in terms of management consulting, we do projects. That is the, kind of the key deliverable that we are doing with our clients day in, day out. You need to know how to manage stakeholders. You need to know how to, kind of address risks, look at different work streams, governance, reporting, all of that good stuff. So I think, it sounds like you've probably got a lot of those core skills that are required from a general project management expertise that will make a great transition into management consulting.
Thank you, Sally. There's a question from Rose. Do you choose which project you would like to do, or do they get allocated to you based on your skill set, knowledge, and if so, can you turn down projects?
Yeah, I think different areas in the business probably have different ways in which work is assigned to us as staff. I mean, in the area that I work in, we have huddles, which we call pods, and essentially if you're in a pod, it's clear that you have an affinity to certain types of projects. So yeah, in general, we don't get people saying I don't want to do this because they're in a pod where we're doing that type of work and they've chosen to kind of be there. It's not by force at all anywhere in the business. If you don't want to be in a certain area, you also have the flexibility to make a move as well. But I think the thing which is probably clear we've not mentioned, it's a consultancy, right? So as a business, we are individually measured how busy we are doing client work, and the business as well it's about doing client work. So you want to align yourself with client work and being highly utilized, which is kind of the measure that we use, it will be important for your career advancement. So yes, you can say no to certain projects, but yeah, as long as there are other projects that you feel best placed to do and you're doing those, I would say that's career advancing rather just saying no, and not kind of doing anything.
If I can just add really quickly to that, in my team, we don't have pods. So I just wanted to give a slightly different perspective. But one thing that we do is, I guess, have a good discussion with your line manager, or we call them advisors in Baringa, about what you're interested in and what you want to do. So for example, I'm working on a public sector project right now, but I've made it quite clear that the next one I'd like to do would be private because I haven't had that experience. And, kind of everyone has been really receptive towards that. We've looked at the dates that I'm looking to roll off the project and the different other projects that would be available around that time to try and make sure that I do get that experience where possible. So there are different, I guess, mechanisms and approaches that are used throughout the business as well.
Thanks, Sally. And I'm just noting in the chat that there's some questions around careers, eligibility, about the application process. If we don't get time to answer those questions will be answered. But right before I hand over back to Kofi to give us an outro and more info about careers at Baringa, I have one last question for the panel. And let's do a little bit of a time traveling exercise and go back to your first day in consulting. What advice would you give to yourself then?
That's a good one. Sorry, Tyrone, you go first.
Oh no, you can go, Sally. or I'm happy to go as well.
I think the one piece of advice I'd give to myself is that it's not that hard. It's actually not rocket science. I think I know we've all talked about, kind of different parts of consulting, but before joining, I was probably a bit nervous that, would I really be able to do the work? What if they find me out, imposter syndrome? What if they know that I'm not actually that great? But genuinely, the one piece of advice I'd have given myself is that it's really not as difficult as people may think or people may have the perception. So kind of go for it, have the confidence, challenge yourself, ask questions if you're unsure, and kind of enjoy the ride.
Nice.
My advice to myself would be basically to frame differently how I see what I'm doing. So as opposed to seeing task as just tasks, see it for more than what it is, which is chance to interact with different people, a chance to do something different, chance to like do something in the moment that you haven't done before. So changing how I see tasks as opposed to get some as something just to do, but it's also just more than that.
Nice. Thanks, Sam.
So I got lost there. I was just actually responding to a question in the chat. I totally lost my train of thought. So sorry entirely. What was the question again, Kaz?
Just quick line of advice that you'd give to yourself.
To myself. That was it. You can, and if not you, then who? Like, there's the imposter syndrome thing is real. But you have to. Everybody's feeling it, to be honest. I think that's probably the best way of looking at it. That everyone is also questioning, am I able? Am I, blah blah blah. But just believe that you are. Take that leap of faith.
Thanks. That's all from the panel, but thank you to everyone for making time. But right before you guys leave, I'm going to hand back to Kofi just to speak a little bit more about careers at Baringa.
Great. Thank you so much, Cassandra, and thank you, Sam, Sally, and Tyrone for being such great panelists. And thank you, audience, for all of your great questions and all of your participation. I'm going to quickly share again, because I know we're running out of time. So I'm quickly going to share my screen and hopefully everyone can see that. And I know, sort of very quickly moving back to this slide where I touched on all of the different industries and capabilities that Baringa has available. One of the great things about doing basically everything is that basically everyone is hiring. And when I tell you Baringa is growing, we are growing at an insane rate. So I joined about 4 years ago when we were about maybe 500 people. And now I think we're around sort of the 1,400 mark. So that shows you how much we're growing and we're really looking to accelerate that growth further. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have a business Baringa enablement team. And that's the sort of business management roles. So that's marketing, recruitment, and advisor, knowledge manager, as well as some finance roles and other HR roles as well. And then in consulting, we have a range of roles from almost junior grades, so the analyst grade, right up to our director and partner grade. So to give a very quick summary of our grade structure, we basically have our more junior grades, which is the analyst and then consultant grades. And then we have our more senior, sort of middle of the road grades in senior consultant and manager. And then when we start to hit senior manager, director and partner, that's when the individuals are starting to build the business through direct client relationships and selling work for other more junior members of the team to take part in. And so the grad and undergrad internship is a great way for people who maybe don't have as much experience or have recently left university to sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so that's the sort of role that's most suitable, I guess, for recent graduates. But then, as you can see, we have a range of roles directly in in specific practice areas. So if you have particular expertise in some of these areas, for example, supply chain or strategy and transaction advisory, which is our private equity team, banking, then there's something out there for you. I know there are a couple of people in the chat who mentioned that they have some experience in pharma. Again, we're looking at all levels. So whether you have 2 years or 20 years experience, again, there's something for you. And just to really, really add, this is just a subset of the roles. There are a bunch more. When I went on the site, I was actually shocked because I actually didn't realize just how many roles were available. So yeah, I really encourage everyone to take the time to find exactly what is for them and apply, because we'd love to have you here. But yeah, that's enough from me. Again, thank you very much, and I'll hand back over to the BYP team, Vanessa and Ramona, to wrap up.
Thank you, Kofi, so much for that. And thank you to all of you for joining us, and a big thank you to Baringa for this wonderful session. Do keep a lookout for an email from us, which will include a link to the career opportunities at Baringa. It will also include a recording of this webinar, as well as a survey, which would be great if you guys fill out for us. And if you'd like to keep updated about future events, please do subscribe to our mailing list and follow us on social media. And do remember to check out the Baringa career opportunities on the BYP Network job board. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you so much to the Baringa team, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you very much.